What's up, fam? Derz and Jeff wishing you a happy ending of 2018.
Back at it.
This is the last episode of the Feed Me Fuel Me podcast for the year.
Yeah.
And it just so happens to be our last show with the Shrugged Collective.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know, we signed season deals, and so they can keep their expanse of content as diverse as possible. Mm-hmm. Our contract is up, and we're moving back to our own channel. So everything from this episode going forward will live on feedmefuelme.com, the Feed Me Fuel Me YouTube channel, and every other social media resource, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All things will be Feed Me Fuel Me after this episode going into 2019.
Yep.
So really, really pumped about that. Like I said in the last episode, I'm sure there's going to be some collaboration down the road. I mean, we just have too good a relationship with that crew, Anders, Doug, Mike, and when we head over to the CrossFit Games in August, I'm sure we'll reconnect and do some stuff. But for now, it's all things Feed Me Fuel Me through and through 100%. And we're pretty pumped with the lineup of guests that we have coming up going into January. So yeah,
been a wild year, man.
One of the coolest things about this year is just kind of the manifestation of everything. We sat down this time 2017 and talked about all the things that we wanted to do, from going exclusively video, monetizing the podcast, picking up sponsors, and it all just lined up, like we did all that shit.
Yeah.
Redid the entire website, just figured out a lot of things, and then we learned a ton from our experience with the collective in terms of the business of podcasting. So it's been a really exciting year, and our network continues to grow. We've got a lot of travel coming up in 2019. Our intention is to hop on a plane once a month and here, there, and everywhere, and just sit down with the who's who of the those communities and figure out what makes them tick, what makes their journey special, and like what allows them to live a fulfilled and successful life. And the funny thing is, as we talk to everybody from entrepreneurs to athletes to psychologists, the tenets of success that has become the bedrock of our conversation, the only thing that's really different is the journey of from one individual to the next, and how the application of that success stuff.
Right.
And I love having the people like Dr. Kara Miller come on the show and not only share her journey, but she's a developmental psychologist, so she can speak to the science behind what makes people happy, what makes you fulfilled, what makes an organization work, and then we sit down immediately after that and talk to Logan Gilbrick, who's working with Kara hand in hand, and get to see the actualization of that psychology, as he applies it to the Hold the Standard Summit and what he does with Deuce Gym. So a lot of that stuff has just been super cool, and the feedback that we've gotten from all of our shows has been something kind of like that.
Right.
I wouldn't have pulled the trigger and going out on my own had I not listened to this episode or whatever, so it's really, really good to engage with our audience from one episode to the next, and really, really dive into what you said, what our guest said, what I said that really stuck with them, really resonated, and allowed them to consciously move to the next level.
Yeah, I think an interesting trend that sort of took place, I would say after you mentioned the Logan episode and Dr. Caramel episode, was the podcast transition from where we're just mostly talking about like, you know, mindset and things to where we should really start diving into like masculine, feminine energy, challenging of those ideas.
That was a huge theme this year.
And it seemed like from the episodes after those, we really dove into it with both male and female guests that we had. That was really interesting because it was about like emotional vulnerability, and especially for the male guest. Yeah, I found that profound because it's not talked about, and it seems like now it's becoming sort of a mainstream idea to talk about where men are comfortable expressing. Yeah, you know, it's all right to have these emotions, and you know, like I guess letting go of that shell that we keep ourselves in, or we've learned to keep ourselves in from growing up. Yeah, just exposing that was completely like out of the ballpark for me because I didn't even think that would happen with what we were talking about.
It was super interesting because you know, we talked about it with Bo, right, and then dove into it a lot on a personal level with Angelo, and then we had that series of shows with Mike and Ashley Bledsoe, and then Anat Perry on the back end, and she really dove into like, you know, in the parental structure. Who's actually responsible for teaching vulnerability? Yeah. And dude, I've been running since that conversation. I've been like running that test with as many people as I can. Like, so, you know, when we get into that next level, that deeper level of conversation, I'm like, so as far as the vulnerability conversation is concerned, who's supposed to teach you that? Mom or dad? And bro, like 90% of the time, it's mom. They say mom. Yeah. And I'm like, no, you know, and I totally riff off, you know, the information that are not delivered. You know, it's like, no, that's dad's responsibility. Yeah, it's crazy. You know? And like that was a very eye-opening aha moment for me this year that really put a lot of things in perspective because I am a dad, you know, and it really helped me reframe my interaction with my kids. So, I mean, just taking that nugget personally and bringing that home with me was so huge. But I mean, the feedback we got on, you know, the masculine feminine thing has been revolutionary for so many people. Right. And I think the cool thing about the guests, especially the men we've had on the show that are engaging in that dialogue, is they're not from a physically stereotypical standpoint feminine guys. Right. You know what I mean? And so I think that makes the message even that much more powerful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man. And what's cool is like another like playoff on that was we had a lot of solid female guests this year that I was really excited about because just hearing their voice and their expression and their framing on different ideas, it changed me because you hear, you know, a lot of the stuff we think is like, you know, it's brute force everything. Right. And they just know how to take a different approach and get the same, if not better, results and outcomes. So applying a lot of like you mentioned, like the female perspective and views to your life has been impactful in everything I've been doing. Because, man, you look at a lot of stuff and you sort of peel back your layers and yourself, you're like, dude, I've been kicking my own ass essentially. Without like thinking I was doing things right. Right. And you just listen to all the people we've talked to and you start applying, you know, their methods, just, you know, just one method from somebody, from every single guest. Oh yeah. And it just completely changes your path. And it's just been incredible, man.
I mean, we've had some badass women on the show. Jessica Woods, Navy Corpsman, Ashley Bledsoe. She's like knee deep in the relationship coaching space now. Anat Perry, Kara Miller,
Jill Peterson.
Oh,
she killed it.
Man, Harmonia. Yeah. That episode was crazy. Yeah. Just her ability to kind of break the fourth wall, if you will, as to like her discovery process amidst postpartum depression, and like the realization that she comes to in that so much of my lack of self-esteem is my own fault. You know, there are things that I need to fix. There are things that I need to own in my own process. And, you know, just watching her, listening to her, explain the evolution of that process.
Yeah.
To the point now where she's lived it with such in such real time that she's now sought after by other women going through the same deal to be coached through that process.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
You know, so getting to listen to you know, I think I enjoy listening to the journey so much. And, you know, I mean, just even last week when, you know, we're sitting there with Kyle, you know, talking about, you know, the reframing of his business based on this aha moment he had with a mentor. And then, like, all that was awesome. And then at the end of the conversation, he's like, purpose is bullshit.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, strike a chord.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Right.
You know, and, you know, his ability to articulate his viewpoint on what purpose actually is, and then, you know, what it is that gives you that semblance of purpose.
Yeah.
I thought that was just a phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, it was really good.
You know,
one that sticks with me, I think for me it was the beginning. It was with Julie Farha about intuition, man.
Yeah.
That one, because I've been seeing Julie after that podcast. I've gone to her a couple times, you know, for guidance on things.
Yeah.
And man, I've never before, you know, talking to Julie, I never would have explored that path of
really?
You know, no clairvoyance. No, not at all, dude. Like I never even thought about it or even looked into it. Because like, yeah, what do you think? You think of the infomercials like Miss Cleo, calm me down. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I thought about that stuff. But after talking to her, man, and understanding, like listening to your intuition, listening to that voice, and really following through and taking action. Right. Dude, like the stuff that she's taught me since then, or during that episode and even after then, has changed the course of everything I've been doing. Because she said, you know, we all have a certain path. This is the vision or, you know, feeling that she gets for your life. But what I really like, she's like, but if you don't take action, like anything, business, life, she's like, my vision only can take you so far if you're not following through with the tools that I'm giving you, you know? And dude, it's just like having somebody that has that, clairvoyance, that outside, yeah, it's outside in perspective, and that, I guess that vision, that clarity, dude, there's days that I just wake up and like, holy shit, like, after the conversation, I remember, I barely remember her and I talking about it, but then I'll wake up one morning and be like, holy crap, she was absolutely right about what the circumstance that popped up. Sure. And it's just crazy how that one, I think for me was like hands down. I think I really like the hands-on interviews, like the one with Dr. Kara Miller, as she's taking you through, you know, her practice, or Julie Farha.
That was the most uncomfortable shit ever.
It's cool though, because think like the Julie, she's up here doing tests on us. We allowed her. She's like, she's telling us exactly about energy as we're going on the show. Right. Yeah. Tonya Rekla is doing the same thing. Dr. Kara Miller did the same thing. I really love those episodes when you're doing that hands-on and seeing the practical application of them doing their profession or like their mastery. It's incredible.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny, Julie, Tonya, you know, they don't classify themselves as coaches, but that's been a huge, just the outside objective guidance has been a huge theme this year. Yeah. You know, like all the people that are taking massive action, doing incredible things. I mean, everything from I just want to build my business into something better to I want to change the fucking world and create something bigger than Disney. Right. They all have coaches. Yeah. You know, and one of the common threads, one of the underlying themes in that coaching conversation is the protection and the cultivation of your energy. You know, and that's one of the really awesome conversations that comes up over and over and over again is the elimination of you know, toxic people, breaking bad habits, creating replacing bad habits with good habits, and creating a better and more sustainable lifestyle that is in line with your goals. And one of the things that I find really interesting, and every single person that's either in a coaching capacity or is receiving coaching, they have all kind of gone through this evolution where they set a goal and but they hadn't evolved to a point where that goal was achievable. And it took the awareness given by a coach to kind of become aware of their blind spots and really develop so that they're able to accomplish whatever it is they set out to do.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So I think going forward, like with our ending of 2019 or 2018 going into 2019, where do you see our show going as far as your vision for it?
Oh, man, I think we've got all the potential in the world to, be right up there with Rogan, where this is the deal. We are doing podcasts on the regular with, very awesome people who are at a place in their evolution where they're seeking exposure, but at the same time, sitting down with Joe Rogan.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going out to LA in the next couple of weeks to interview Max Martini. He was in 13 Hours, and he's got a new movie coming out. Sergeant Will, check out his IG, Max Martini LA. And he's done a series. He's consistently cast in military themed movies, but he's a classically trained actor.
Wow.
But he acts the part like superbly.
Yeah.
So I can't wait to dive into that conversation because, obviously he doesn't have to take those roles, but that's kind of like the genre that he's living in right now. And to, having, been active duty and watching his portrayal of military personnel, I'm extremely interested to dive into that conversation as to how he puts himself in that space to do it so well. In the movie that's about to come out, he plays a soldier who's having a really horrible time reintegrating in American society after so many deployments to Iraq. So like we have the potential to have conversations with people that are, most would consider unreachable.
Right.
And that's what I'm the most excited about, above and beyond, where we're going to take it, business wise.
Right. I agree, man.
Is the access.
Yeah.
That's one of the reoccurring words when I describe 2018 for myself, for the show, for CrossFit PHX, is access. It just comes up over and over and over again in terms of who we're able to talk to, opportunities we're able to take advantage of. The word access is just a reoccurring theme this year, and I think that's going to carry over into 2019 and just catapult. We're at the at that point in our progression where as you sit back and you look at the 30,000-foot view of where we were, where we are, and where we're going, we're right there at the curve where it's about the hockey stick.
Right.
Right. So that's where I see us going.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
I like it.
This is what I want to be doing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Like I'll always have CrossFit PHX, and that community is thriving and kicking ass. It's, been rated the #1 CrossFit gym in America, and it's rolling. You know what I'm saying? But I think that for me personally, in my personal and professional evolution, this is the conversation and the exposure that I want to create for people on a massive level.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the analytics of Feed Me, Fuel Me on its own, I think we're bumping up against 1 million downloads already. So I want 10 million in 2019.
Nice. I love it, man.
10X, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Grant Cardone. You know?
GC.
You know what I'm saying?
The homeboy.
But like that's where I honestly see us going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, dude. I like it.
So what about you? What do you want personally and professionally out of this going into 2019?
Just like sort of playing back on this year, I think it's been from the thing that plays with me is more clarity. You know, talking to people who are, especially like even like last episode with Kyle Mock, is having a clear, defined vision of where you want to take things, you know. And so going into 2019, I've looked at a lot of the projects I've done. When I transferred out of consulting, I had pure clarity. That's why I was able to get in, sell that business, and get out of it quickly because I knew the objective. Right. And then so transitioning to the building Land of Lean this year, it's been tough.
Sure.
Because I've run against some crazy ass hurdles this year. Got one lawsuit, one patent infringement, just a crazy list of shit that's happened this year, even up until like last week. So just getting all that stuff figured out has been like a trial by fire in a way. And I think like halfway, or like I would say in August, I sort of lost clarity of where I want to take the brand. Of where it's like, I know the mission, I know the vision for it. I guess like the big picture of where I wanted it initially, but I wasn't completely clear on how to get there, or even dissecting it. I wasn't even completely clear on the mission statement of what the company was going to be. Like how is it going to truly affect people in a positive way, without just being a company that sells products, supplements, this, that, and the other knickknacks that makes money. But is it really making a true impact that helps others? So like I've been sort of just trying to dissolve that. Like, you know, strip it down to bare bones and figure out like how we can portray the story of Land of Lean, the messaging, the branding to be congruent with my idea of what I dream it to be or envision it to be. So yeah, going into that, like 2019, that's how I'm like looking at things and using the podcast as more of a vehicle to meet cool people, but really understand the business mind of people like Kyle Mock who have dissected, you know, their process down to get that clarity, that ask themselves the right questions, to be in touch or have access to those people who have the questions that you're afraid to ask yourself, or that you don't even know that you're not asking yourself. Like when Mike pinged me that time we were in California, I was like, holy shit, he knocked me off guard because I didn't even have an answer to that question. And I'm the type of guy who usually knows how to answer questions. So that's what I'm sort of just going into it as within 2019. And like you said, just blowing it up, man. Because I think as far as the transition of where Feed Me, Feel Me started from talking about nutrition, fitness, you know, all that, the standard basic crap, you know, that we thought we wanted to talk about, then it died after 13 episodes of that. Then transitioned into the mindset piece. And now we're getting into, I think, like the third or fourth layer of like, now we're talking about emotional intelligence, you know, feminine, masculine energy, like the real deep stuff that people are scared to touch on. I want to continue to dive down that rabbit hole and go even deeper to like those layers that create, or even just pull back that real emotional layer of like, why the fuck are we doing what we're doing? Like, why did we start the podcast in the first place? You know, and like really ask ourselves that question of like, why is it Derz and Jeff? Because it could be Derz or whomever, Jeff or whomever, excuse me, on the show. But why was our synergy right at that time frame? You know what I mean? So really just diving into those pieces is where I want to go. And like you said, just blowing this thing up, man. Because I feel like with the access to the collective and what they've, like the mindset and, you know, insight that they've brought to us and the audience that they've brought to us has been incredible. So I'm extremely thankful for them and those relationships. So just continue to grow from there.
For sure. You know, one of the things that one of the opportunities that's presented itself as a byproduct of doing this show, you know, going back to these reoccurring themes in our conversation, you know, we have almost 120 hours, probably over 120 hours, because they're not, you know, we've done a handful of hour and a half, 2 hour episodes, of just solid content. So I'm writing a book based on these conversations and these themes that have come up over and over and over again. And as I replay these conversations in real time and in my mind, there's about 12 of them that I've condensed down into a book, and I'm in the editing process right now. And it should be out in February, March. Yeah. And I'm super excited about that because it'll be a great segue into creating exposure for Feed Me, Fuel Me, for people who may not necessarily be into podcasting or are looking for this content. They just don't know that it presents itself on YouTube, on iTunes, on Spotify. So it's just another access point to us, our guests, and the conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
You know, and it really gives us an opportunity to truly globalize our message.
Yeah.
You know, I not even in a million years when we did our first episode on the patio at SIP with 3 iPhones and Facebook Live under misters and 117 degrees, thought that like I knew the potential was there, but I didn't think like it was going to happen.
Right.
You know, I remember asking a lot of how questions, and since we've started the show, one of the things I've picked up on is like how is not important. You know, if the vision is clear, the how takes care of itself.
Right.
And we are now here. We've got J Max Media, Justin, you know, behind the camera, you know, making sure that you guys can see us, you know, and he takes the glare off my bald head in post. You know, now people are able to put a legitimate face with our voices. Yeah. You know, and that just gives us an added layer of connection and rapport with our audience. Yeah. You know, and you know, so like that's when I look at where we're going in 2019, I want to be able to touch everybody everywhere. We went from, I remember 3 people engaging us on that very first Facebook Live. That was it, 3. And we're bumping up against 1 million downloads.
Yeah, it's wild.
You know, in 2.5 years.
That's wild, man.
You know, like the stats on podcasting, for those who don't know, 90% don't make it past episode 10. 98% don't make it to 50. You know, so we're already in rarefied air, and I think that since I've taken on my new coaches, especially working with Ken on organizational leadership, his episode was so good. Ken Kilday, one of the things that he's really pulled out of me is my ability to well, first of all, he made me acknowledge my reluctance to appreciate my own progress. And by mine, I mean ours, as far as in the context of Feed Me, Fuel Me. And, you know, that's one of the things that really, really resonates with me now is taking a step back and looking at and appreciating how far we've actually come and acknowledging the rarefied air that we're in. You know, there's literally a million podcasts out there, and for a collective like Barbell Shrugged to come in and say, hey, of everybody who's out here doing this thing, we want you guys to come on board. You know, that really, that's to me validation that we definitely have something going that's fruitful, promising, and engaging. Yeah, it's empowering. You know, our new tagline is empowering your journey, because I really feel like, based on the feedback that we've received, that's exactly what we do. You know, we give people the information, the inspiration to step outside of themselves, assess their scenario, and then put an actionable plan in place based on what somebody else has already done. And move forward with their progression and evolution.
Right. Yeah, I agree, man. I think, you know, just going forward, just continue to, as we transition, continue to let people more in on the story of who both you and I are. Yeah. Is going to be huge. Because I know for my big thing is like the privacy, like giving everything to people. That's not my strength. Sure. I'm just sort of like a
daring greatly, baby.
Yeah, dude, I isolate, bro. So I think just giving more people of the story of like who we are, what we've accomplished, and why we're here and what we're doing, what we're doing. Yeah. You know, that's what I'm going to focus on going into from a personal perspective. Sure. So they can understand like why is Jeff doing this? Why is he putting his message out in the world? And what is that message?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, one of the things that's super interesting, because we started this podcast because this conversation you and I were having a lot.
Right.
Right. And it, the original intent was to expose people to this conversation. And then it evolved to, well, if you and I are having this conversation, there's a select few other people in our circle that are also engaging in this dialogue. Let's get their perspective.
Right.
So then we started bringing on guests, right? And that's since evolved to, we're able to, the manifestation of affirmation, if you will, the fulfillment and happiness and how to do that has now become an iceberg. Like, this is what success looks like on the surface. But when we get underneath the water, there's a ton of stuff that go into that little bit that you see at the top.
Right.
And now we're able to expose the giant rock of ice underneath the tip of the iceberg that is the makeup of what it is that you actually see.
Right.
And, as our awareness of that submerged iceberg increases, the depth of our conversation just gets so much better.
Right.
Hashtag deep and dope.
And on that note,
but no, I think that, the show was started because we literally and selfishly wanted to have this conversation.
Right.
And increase our bandwidth and awareness. And I think that the selfless part that is Feed Me, Fuel Me is that element of letting people in on that conversation.
Right.
You and I have invested tens of thousands of dollars in personal growth and development and coaching. And, as we've sat back and we've monetized the information contained in this conversation over 120 episodes, there's over $100,000 in information. I just had the Tony Robbins experience a couple of weeks ago, last month. And, the immersion training that he provides is tens of thousands of dollars. And there's a lot of information that he delivers, that kind of information that's embedded in this conversation, so there's a ton of value in the discussions that we have.
Yeah.
And for very selfish reasons, we ask these questions, but very selflessly allowing people in on that conversation is what makes the show impactful.
Right. I completely agree with that, man.
So 2019 is going to be massive, man.
Yeah, continue to grow, continue to adjust, and just provide the best value we can, for sure.
Right on.
Look at everything. I'm pumped. It's going to be good, man.
So from here on out, guys, you can find us on all things Feed Me, Fuel Me. After this episode, you'll find us on the Feed Me, Fuel Me channel on YouTube. FeedMeFuelMe.com is where our episodes will live. You can find us on iTunes and all the other podcast channels. And everything is Feed Me, Fuel Me on social. So Twitter, IG, Facebook. We really appreciate you guys riding the ride with us and watching the show evolve. And we will continue to evolve and make our delivery of the content that you want that much more impactful. And, we're extremely grateful to Anders, Mike, and Doug for allowing us to jump on the train that is the Shrugged Collective and everything and all the exposure that they've helped us create. And look forward to collaborating with them in the future. But, going into 2019, man, it's Feed Me, Fuel Me through and through. And we really, really hope that when it's all said and done, after you listen to these conversations and you're able to apply some of that and empower your journey to take your life to the next level, because ultimately that's the goal.
Yep.
So
love it.
Yeah. Until next time, guys. Feed me, fuel me.